Welcome to Vendée Live in English this Wednesday afternoon. It's day 73 on the racecourse and it is the 20th of January. We're talking about a finish on the 27th, so probably 1 week to go. And we're looking at the biggest finish ever, closest ever, with the biggest number of boats finishing within the shortest period of time. So that's what we're looking forward to. It's going to be a long week of preparation here in Les Sables d'Olonne, with everybody trying to get as much sleep as possible, looking forward to that big day. We're talking possibly about 6 or 7 boats finishing within 6 to 8 hours, or as Seb Joss, our weather consultant, said, plus or minus 24 hours. So we never really know on this Vendée Globe. And certainly nobody is saying who's going to finish on the podium. In the meantime, we've readjusted the tracker for those tracker addicts. You can see that there's a new waypoint. It's slightly adjusted the situation for Damien Sagan, who was out in the east. It's a little bit more accurate at the moment. And for sure, still just now, it's Charlie Dallin who's out in the lead. My guest today is Ian Walker, back home in England. Ian is a double Olympic silver medalist. He is the racing director at the RYA. He's an America's Cup skipper, and he's also a past winner of the Volvo Ocean Race. Ian, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm great, thanks. Great, thanks, Andy. Thank you very much for inviting me on the show. And like everybody else, I'm glued to the tracker and really looking forward to the next week to see how this pans out.
Do you have a favourite?
Well, I guess you know I'm a Brit at heart, so we were all sort of cheering on Sam and Alex, but you know, sadly that's not to be this time around. So look, I think the great thing about the Vendée is that everybody has their story. You know, we're cheering for Pip. She's doing a great job. She's communicating brilliantly well. And of course, she's been racing well as well. So very proud of what she's done. And Miranda Merrin, the other British skipper, still back in the race. I was at university with her, so I did a lot of team racing. Miranda, sailed with Miranda a lot. So sort of on a very personal level, I'm really wishing her well and, you know, hoping she gets around safely. And again, you know, what a great job she's been doing.
Indeed, let's see. I think we may have Pip here with us live from the South Atlantic on board Medallia. Pip, how are you?
Hello, yeah, I'm good, thank you. Hi, Ian.
Yeah, not too bad. I gather you've had an encounter with a jellyfish.
Yeah. Only I could have created that problem. It's actually quite nasty. It's like I've got a chemical burn on my back. But yes, I've managed to get stung by a Portuguese man of war, which is quite special, I think.
Getting stung and not even going in the water, now that is special.
Yeah, well, I mean, I thought it was funny. They were just all over my boat in all the bags and everything. I didn't know they were still venomous when they're dead.
Dear, dear. Listen, Pip, I've got Ian Walker in England. Ian's got a few words for you.
Pip, I owe you an apology to start with because I missed our interview last week. Nobody actually told me when it was going to be. So I've got this horrible image of you waiting for me to call while you could have been doing much more important things. So apologies for that. But I really just want to pass the message that we're really proud of your race so far. We've all been cheering you on. And I'm in awe of the fact you changed the rudder. I've tried to change the rudder on a Volvo 70 with fully crewed as part of our safety drills, and I have to admit we couldn't do it. So quite how you did that. I'm looking forward to having a beer or a glass of wine at some point and you explaining how on earth you managed to do that. But finally, I would say that you're not the first to be stung by jellyfish. We've had crews stung by jellyfish, but I'm not so sure they were Portuguese men of war or Brazilian men of war.
Oh, okay, that makes me feel slightly less of a dunce then. Thank you.
Pip, how are things? You're trying to get through this semi-permanent, the cold front just off of Cabo Frio.
Yes, I've got a sticky day ahead. I think I've been fairly lucky. I've been banking some miles, sort of crawling up to the east, and all through last night I was sort of on it, really, really trying to eke everything out of the wind I could. And I think today is where I have the pain. There's a big sort of stop ahead of me, and really the route out is to the west, which means, I'm going to have to take a bit of pain today, hopefully just for the day, and then we might get some breeze filling in from the west tomorrow. But yeah, it's time to take my medicine. But we're still rolling.
You're still rolling. Any chance of catching up the boats in front a little bit?
I mean, I've taken some miles out of them during the night, but they are in the west, and I think the breeze is going to fill in from the west sooner, and they'll have a better angle than I will. So, I mean, I'm not giving up. They are going to be looking over their shoulders for the rest of the race. I'm not giving up, but I think this time they're probably going to slip away from me, I think.
Yeah. And are you still enjoying every day as much as it looks, or you're having a few down moments?
No, I'm loving it. I mean, I think, obviously from pretty much the stint from changing my rudder until, I came out of that depression a couple of days ago, that was hard. It was really hard. Just all of these problems mounting up over and over again. And sometimes you just feel kind of like you're losing the edge of the control. And I like to be on it. I like to be ahead of it. I like everything to be organised. I want to do my job, in good time. And because I was just reacting to so many things that were happening, I felt like I was losing that control. And so that did, it was stressful and it was difficult. But you got to, in the moment, it's very intense, and sometimes it feels a bit desperate. But you've got to take the time to zoom out and just think about what you're actually doing and where you are. And for me, I still, every time I zoom out, I'm like, wow, I'm doing the Vendée Globe. I made this happen. I'm doing the Vendée Globe. I'm in a 20-year-old boat, and look where I am in the fleet. There's nothing not to smile about there.
Ian, do you have any observations on that? Maybe a little bit of encouragement or advice for Pip, or sounds like she doesn't need too much?
Well, I've seen how hard Pip has fought just to get to the start line, let alone to wrestle her boat around the world. And I don't know, I'm sat here wondering, I'm a little bit concerned she's going to do a Bernard Matoissier and go round again and turn right like he did back in 1967 or 68. And I'm a little bit worried Pip's not going to want to come home. And I have to say, Pip, if you are thinking about that, home's not much fun at the moment with COVID and stuff. So obviously you want to do in the race, but don't rush back. You're in the best place right now.
Yeah. I think I will definitely do another Vendée, but this boat definitely doesn't want to do another Vendée. I think it thinks 5 is enough.
Okay, so you're not going to turn right and go back round the Cape of Good Hope and head for Tahiti like he did.
Probably not, but I might be lingering on my delivery back to the UK because I'm definitely happier in the sea.
Fantastic. But
I've been talking to your shore crew. People obviously making plans as you have to do these days for travel, and everybody's really excited at your arrival. So so best of luck for the rest of the trip, Pip.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just that we've been talking about the arrival, and it is going to be really, really, really hard and disappointing. But, we're just trying to make the best of all of it.
I'm afraid that's what we pretty much have to do, all of us just now, Pip. But you're doing a fantastic race, and keep it up, and we'll speak in a couple of days.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Cool. So that's Pip here then. Ian, I mean, it's a difficult time considering even coming back, as you say.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine what it would have been like to leave 80 days ago. It feels like a week's a long time at the moment, let alone 80 days. But I think I'm sure that France will put on a special arrival for everybody as they deserve, and I think when everybody reflects, they'll reflect on their own personal achievement, which is what this race is all about. As I say, wherever you finish, everybody's sort of got their own story to tell, and it's a tremendous achievement, wherever you are in this fleet.
But I think, well, one of the key things here is that it will be a relatively quiet arrival, completely different to what we've known, just as it was at the start. And I think Pip in particular found that pretty hard because, her parents and her friends and family couldn't come to the start, and it looks like it'll be the same at the finish. And that's such a big part of the Vendée.
It is, yeah. It's a really big part of all big offshore races, but especially the Vendée. I've never been there myself. It's an ambition to get there one day to witness it, and it's really tricky. People, especially British support crew, they're going to have to quarantine into France, assuming they're allowed to travel. They'll have to quarantine on return to the UK. There's a lot of deterrence, but of course everybody so passionately wants to be there and show their support. So, tough times, but as I say, the Vendée race itself, fortunately, is one of the things that's bringing great joy to people, and particularly following this amazing race at the front of the fleet.
Good. I'll come back to you in just 1 second, Ian. We're just going to run through the standings at midday. And, Charlie Dallin is still out in front. He's registering a lead of 127 miles ahead of Louis Burton. Burton seems to be a little bit slow just now getting into the high pressure, or the fringes of the high pressure first, perhaps doing 9.5 knots. Charlie doing 16.6. Thomas Riong up in third and doing 14.9 knots. He's pretty much alongside Boris Herrmann in terms of latitude. Boris is doing 17.6 knots and making the best VMG of the leading group just now, doing 15.1 knots in terms of VMG. Damien Sagan is now in fifth. Remember, he was second yesterday, largely because of his position to the east of the fleet. Yannick Bestaven's quick as well, 16.5 knots. Giancarlo Padotti, 15.6 in seventh. He's 231 miles behind. Now the stretch continuing for the boats behind as the leaders move away. Jean Le Cam is now 352 miles behind Dallin. Benjamin Dutreux in ninth, Maxime Sorel in 10th, and that big gap, almost 300 miles between Benjamin Dutreux and Maxime Sorel. And I think that may be when we get our break next week at the finishes, top 9 within 360 miles. Armel Tripon in 11th, and looking down our internationals, Alan Rura in 16th, going quite comfortably just now. We spoke with him earlier on. He's in good form, although he's running out of chocolate and sweets. That's a little bit of a crisis for a Swiss skipper who has a sweet tooth. Pip here is in 17th. She is just less than 100 miles behind Alan and going slightly quicker today. And then further down, Didac Costa in 19th, Kojiro Shiraishi in 20th, about just over 20 miles, 30 miles or so behind Didac. And then Miranda Merin in 22nd, Ari Husela in 25th. And Ari approaching Cape Horn, should go round at the weekend. Ian, I'm going to come back to you then. You say you remember Miranda Merin from university. What was she like then, and did you ever expect to see her in the Vendée Globe when she was sailing in your university team?
Well, I mean, we were sailing dinghies. I remember many a cold day at Grafham Water, particularly in the winter, trying to wrestle the Laser 2s around in strong wind. I remember one particular day with Miranda where we went all the way down the lake practicing our jibes in ever-increasing wind. And I used to call it jibe till you die. It was basically keep jibing until you capsize. And thinking back, she's a tough cookie. She's a smart girl, really smart girl. Cambridge University, she changed course halfway through, started doing Japanese from scratch to Cambridge degree level. So super smart, really gutsy, strong, natural sailor, but tough. That was the thing that stood out. And she burnt the candle at both ends. She was doing a difficult course, sailing, rowing, partying hard. All round good girl.
Good training for the Vendée Globe then.
Looking back on it, it sounds pretty ideal training, yes.
But I mean, are the key standouts for us with Miranda's race is she's so understated, and she never makes any drama of anything that's happened to her, and she's sailed such an accomplished course.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that would sum her up pretty well. You know, she understated, you know, very, very capable, and you know, with lots of resolve. And you know, like I say, in this race, everybody's a winner. That's the amazing thing about this race. You know, wherever you finish, even just to get to the start line, many of them will feel that, you know, that's a victory in itself, and to get to the finishing line is even more so. So yeah. It's still a long way to go, though.
It is indeed, and anything can happen. But Ian, I mean, we'll talk about just in a second, but the pressure really is on this leading group of 6 to 9 boats. Any of them could finish on the podium. We've never experienced this before in the Vendée Globe, but I think the key is that the skippers haven't, and they're really starting to feel the pressure. Yannick Bestaven, this was him coming out of the doldrums, I think a day and a half ago, and really kind of feeling like he's under pressure.
Dernier grain de la sortie, ça. N'importe quoi ce moment, n'importe quoi ici. La sortie du poteau noir, c'est toute une affaire. Ce matin, il y avait 0 nœud, et là, il y en a 35. Rien n'a été facile sur ce Vendée Globe, rien, jusqu'au bout. Pas du tout épargné.
So they're just a little bit of an insight into life on board Maitre Koch. Ian, tell me how the pressure will be affecting these skippers then. It's kind of more like a Volvo finish in some essences, other than the fact they're so much tireder and the boats are tireder.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think if you look back at previous Vendées, we've had boats, you know, losing their keels, losing their masts, you know, in the final run-in. It's really tempting to think, you know, it's only a few thousand miles to go, but it's still like a transatlantic. You know, that's a big challenge. And you've only got to look out the window right now in southern England to know that there's a lot of weather around. So for sure, they're going to have to endure some difficult conditions. And I think that preys on your mind. And I think for me, fundamentally, it's like in much of sailing, it's a kind of risk and reward. It's how much am I going to push? What risks am I going to take? And you know, that's a very calculated decision. You know, I watched Charlie, seen his race. He seems like a very calculating sailor, and of course those calculations are going to be even more difficult with the time allowances at the end. You know, 10 hours, 16 hours. You know, what does that mean? Is there going to be no wind in the middle of the night, and that could be 20, 30 miles? Or is it going to be herring in a depression when suddenly 10 hours could be 200 miles? So, you know, and they're not going to be able to control that. So knowing how hard to push and what is a sort of significant enough margin, particularly bearing in mind the time allowances, is going to be really, really tricky. And obviously they're tired, they're physically tired. So it's going to be a real test of willpower. The only thing I would say is if anybody can do that, it's the sailors that are used to doing the solitaire, the Figaros. You know, that's what they train to do. That's what they're good at.
Indeed, I think Charlie Dallin fits that category, and I think there's another category which I'd put Louis Burton in, and Yannick Bestaven. I think able to kind of switch off and just sail fast and not indulge in the worries the way that perhaps some of the other skippers are being affected. You know, we spoke with Boris Herman yesterday with Prince Albert, and he was saying, actually, I'm quite scared. The more that I go on, the more I feel like I might break something. The stakes get ever higher.
Yeah, and you've still got to finish the race, and so you've got to, you know, that's and I would say we also don't really know, or I don't suspect we know, the extent of any damage to any of the boats. Many of the skippers might not have chosen to share some of the more minor damages they have or concerns they've got. You know, I know we're aware of some of the bigger ones, like the damage to foils with Thomas Rion and Charlie Dallin, but and there'll be a bit of, you know, little bit of luck in that as well, in terms of which tack, you know, the majority of the race will be sailed on. It does look like, you know, the majority of the starboard tack, where those boats with damaged port foils will be struggling, it does look like the majority of that is over once they get through into sort of westerly breezes and heading in a northeasterly direction. So it may well be that the last sort of few days has been the most dangerous period for Charlie. The only thing I would say is the mileage to the finish doesn't really reflect the true position right now, and it really right now is a race north to get in the westerly winds, and the furthest boat north is Louis Burton. So I think there's really not much between the leading two, especially considering the time allowance as well.
Indeed, Ian. Let's have a quick look at the weather just for 1 second. We'll come back to you. Andrew, the weather, please. So thanks, Andy. Looking then at the Pacific, really, first of all for Ari Husela and Alexia Barry coming into the approach to Cape Horn. They have maybe 15, 20 knots of breeze just now from the west and northwest coming in, but they should have good conditions all the way in. The wind will build for them 30 knots probably at the Cape, but they should have a nice rounding, proper Cape Horn conditions perhaps. And they should be in round about Sunday. Looking further up the fleet, we're looking at Miranda Merrin here, and she's underneath this high pressure system, trying not to get too close to the centre, lighter breezes for her in the meantime. From the northwest and west, just now she's going to follow the path of the high, watching how it evolves all the time. Then it's quite complicated up in this area here in particular with these, we have the semi-permanent cold front here now just moving very slightly for Pip Hare, trying to get through it. The bonus is on the other side of it. You're into the influence of this high pressure system here, where we can see Jeremy Bayou. Bayou's now into it, and although his boat is angled like that, the breeze now curves round to the east, and he should be able to reach up, paralleling the coast all the way up now from there. Similarly, also for Alan Rura and Arnaud Boissé, same kind of situation. So that's the general picture in the Pacific and in the South Atlantic. Now we're looking at the leaders. We see this big separation, lateral separation between Charlie Dallin and Louis Burton, and then similarly, not quite as pronounced between Boris Herman and Thomas Rion. And we're just going to run the animation now. We're watching the curve of this high pressure system, how it evolves. We're going round the curve of it, trying not to get too close to the center where the winds are much lighter, and we're looking to hook into the low pressure system which is coming in from the west. So as we say, we're watching the curve of the high, the little bit of compression now. Louis Burton comes round on it first, and then we're watching the evolution of the lows coming in, and seeing just a general bit of compression in terms of the lateral separation. And here comes your low pressure system. This is just now it's all about the jibes, the timings of the jibes, and watching where we're in the best pressure all the time. And really, it's still too hard to predict. Obviously, we see Louis Burton here down separating away from the main group, but that's pretty theoretical, working on different polars at the moment. Great job, Andrew. Thank you so much. So, Ian Walker, tell us, I mean, this has been a very good race for the IMOCA class. Do you think that will feed into the ocean race? Do you imagine we'll see more IMOCAs signing up for the ocean race?
Well, it's been interesting, hasn't it? Because I think it's been a real proving ground. I mean, I think the thing we've learned is that the new foilers haven't really had much of an edge over the course of the whole race, because they weren't able to really demonstrate their speed in the Southern Ocean, and obviously so many of them either had bad luck or technical problems. I mean, one of the boats I've been following really closely is Armel Tripon, because he got so far behind, having had gear failure and got stuck in no wind. I was willing him to catch up, and knowing he's got that cool boat. And he has done, and he's clawed his way back. I think he's 800 miles behind now. So that's been fun to watch. But it's interesting, isn't it, to reflect if, with hindsight now, what boat would you have designed for this race? And would you have just sort of evolved the last boats rather than sort of going as radical as many teams did? What it means for the Volvo, it's too hard to say. I think I'm more concerned about teams getting to the start line of the Volvo in the current sort of economic climate. That's going to be a big challenge. I think we're going to be relying on as many of these boats as possible to be available. And I'm not expert enough to know which of these boats are capable of sailing with more people or not. So sorry to dodge the question a little bit there, but certainly what the IMOCA has proved in this race, that many of the boats have got real longevity. When you see, boats that won the last race, doing so well, in this race, and boats that have done 3, 4, even 5 races, still able to sail around the world. That does speak volumes for the IMOCA class, certainly the slightly older generation boats.
Indeed, Ian. I think I'm hopeful that maybe some teams will be inspired to take on an IMOCA and go and do the ocean race, but we'll wait and see how that transpires. Ian, thank you so much for your time today, and hopefully we'll catch up at some point over the course of this year, and the best of luck to you and your teams.
Thanks, Andy, and good luck to the competitors for the rest of the race. We'll be watching closely.
So that's Ian Walker. Now, Clarice Kramer is on good form on board Pank Popular, starting to get into the trade winds, and we spoke with Clarice earlier on today, and a big smile.
The last few days were much more easy than the days I had before, because the winds were quite nice. I was in the trade winds, and the weather is very peaceful, even though I have a few squalls, and sometimes the wind is a bit shifty, but I had the occasion to rest, I had the occasion to enjoy, to spend some time outside, which is nice, because on those boats we don't often enjoy being outside, because it's wet and it's not so nice most of the time, but right now it's quite nice. And so I could rest, and I had very nice days, and now I'm getting prepared for the doldrums.
How do the doldrums look for you?
Well, I don't know. They look okay. They look a bit nicer than what they were for the first guys, for the head of the fleet, but you never really know. So I'm going to go into it and see what happens. I don't really have a choice, and maybe make a few prayers, and anyway, you can have a look at the satellite images, but apparently it changes so fast, so I don't know. We'll see.
And what about the guys in front? Do you have a favourite to win the race?
Well, it's so hard to make pronostics. It's so hard to say anything about this race. I think it's crazy. I think these guys are going to arrive completely broken and exhausted, because the rhythm, the pace they have to have for the finish right now. I'm pretty sure they are all getting crazy. I don't know. It's true that Charlie and Louis have a little advantage, but anything can happen, and you have to add on top of that all the hours that some guys are supposed to have back when they arrive, like Boris, Jean, Yannick. It's very complicated, so I'm not going to try to say who is going to win. But I hope they are all happy when they arrive.
So Clarice Kramer dodging the question, but certainly right about saying that the skippers will arrive exhausted and broken, and we'll have to wait for another week till we know who's won. A little bit tired this morning I was when I spoke with Clarice, and she caught me on the hop.
I was wondering how you said the Alizé.
The trade winds.
Trade winds?
That's right. Every day is a school day on the Vendée Globe, Clarice. Now listen, Armel Tripon is trying to catch you before the finish. Do you think he has a chance?
No, Armel is trying to catch Maxime. Armel is way ahead of me right now.
All right,
he's trying
of course.
to catch Maxime. Behind me I have Romain, I have
Romain. Of course, sorry.
Yeah, you have to follow the race.
Indeed, every day is a school day, and a school day tomorrow once again with Marcus Hutchison, the team manager for Thomas Rion. Join us tomorrow, Thursday. Any questions for Marcus, who usually gets loads of questions, post them on Facebook, Twitter or on Instagram, and we'll see you tomorrow.